Hi, it's O.T. Carlson here. The Doors were one of the all-time great classic rock bands. Even if their career was fairly short, the band fronted by legendary vocalist, poet Jim Morrison certainly stands the test of time. And when I found out that there was going to be a documentary on the making of one of the best albums in the Doors catalog, L.A. Woman, I knew it's something that I'd want to get my hands on. Today we're taking a look at this. This is The Doors, Mr. Mojo Risin, the story of L.A. Woman. I'm going to unbox this release and I will share my opinions. Nice cover art there, similar to the L.A. Woman album. I actually got my copy autographed by drummer John Densmore back when I met him at an in-store in 2014. Inside the package, we have an ad here for the 40th anniversary of the L.A. Woman album. Nice little deluxe edition of that. You might want to check that out if you're a fan and want to add that to your music collection. Underneath there, we have a list of chapters that's kind of broken down by song. And then there's also bonus features that are additional features that didn't make it into the final documentary. We have our disc right here. Disappointingly, there's no art under the disc or anything. The Doors' L.A. Woman was their sixth studio album, released in 1971. It was also their final studio album with singer Jim Morrison, who was found dead in a bathtub in Paris in July of that year. The band actually did continue on and did two albums without Jim Morrison that were largely, and perhaps rightfully so, forgotten. There was also a later album called American Prayer, which featured spoken word poetry from Morrison, taken from archival recordings, that was set to music by surviving members of the group. L.A. Woman was an interesting album for the Doors because it was sort of a return to basics, back to bluesy rock and roll. The band, of course, really heavily experimented with psychedelia on their first several albums. The Sock Parade saw the band incorporating horn sections and more elaborate arrangements, but then Morrison Hotel was sort of a return back down to earth, and in a lot of ways, L.A. Woman was sort of a continuation of that. This was an interesting turn for the band because their longtime producer, Paul Rothchild, wanted nothing to do with the songs that he heard the band rehearsing. He even dismissed the song Riders on the Storm as cocktail music. Ridiculous as that may sound 50 plus years later. So the band ended up using Bruce Botnick as their producer, who of course had been the engineer on earlier albums. And they went back to record at their rehearsal studio where they were more comfortable, recording the album largely live in the studio, aside from just overdubbing a few guitar and piano parts here and there. The end result is that the group actually recorded one of their strongest albums. We even get to hear about how excited Jim Morrison was. They were bringing in some guest musicians, including some of them that had played in Elvis Presley's band. This album, of course, is one that's held in very high esteem in the Doors catalog. It was Jim Morrison's swan song, but if you're going to go out on an album, L.A. Woman was certainly the one to go out. The title track, Love Her Madly, and of course the aforementioned Riders on the Storm are all classics for the ages. But then you have plenty of other stuff on here as well that tends to get overlooked, like Hyacinth House, The Changeling, Texas Radio, and The Big Beat. There's a reason this album is held in such high regard. And if you're a fan of the Doors, getting to go and check out this story, hearing from many of the people that were involved, sadly many of whom are no longer with us, is certainly a treat, and you're going to like what you hear. It's an interesting story and one that's absolutely worth hearing for any fan. The actual documentary on here is about 50 minutes in length. There's about 35 minutes worth of deleted scenes, and then there's also a photo montage set to a song called She Smells So Nice that was previously unreleased, and that didn't make it onto the final album. And overall, the newly filmed interviews on here look very good. However, the archival footage of the band, understandably, is in varying shape and condition. If you are a fan of the group, though, I think you'll be happy with how this release looks overall. For any fan of the Doors, this documentary comes very highly recommended. It's a great look back at the group and everything they accomplished, and it's a great look at their swan song of an album and what an album it was to go out on. Are you a fan of the Doors? Have you seen this documentary on L.A. Woman yet? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. We're always posting new videos, and make sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm O.T. Carlson. I'll see you next time.